and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I am your hostess with the mostest on the Wedding Dish Podcast, Sarah Alapin, and I am also the CEO of Photos from the Harty and District Bliss. Before we get started, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, be sure to check it out. It had tons of great info about what you should ask your wedding planners and what you should know about, or your wedding vendors and what you need to know about them before you book, and all kinds of good stuff. So thank you everyone for listening to the Wedding Dish today. Today, we are talking with an incredible wedding planner based in Montreal, the human behind Vintage Luxe events. Valerie, thank you so much for joining me on the Wedding Dish today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share, my best tips and practices to your audience, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yay! Well, today we're talking about social media versus reality because this can be kind of a difficult subject to navigate when you initially get engaged. A lot of couples kind of default to looking at social media as a place to start the wedding planning process, whether that be where they're finding their inspiration or their vendors. Valerie, what are some of the dangers surrounding planning a wedding based on social media content?
Oh, I love this question. So long, so much information. So first things first is, don't get me wrong, social media could be good, great for inspiration only. And when I mean inspiration only, it's just for the picture. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you get engaged, you're all excited, you're planning, let's say, a summer wedding, okay? Perfect topic because now it's summer, so why not summer wedding? So you type on Pinterest, good old Pinterest, and you're like, okay, summer wedding inspiration. And let's say the color palette is pastel colors because I feel pastels are making a very, very nice comeback this season. So you see this beautiful picture by a lake with the perfect table setting, and you're like, I want that. Okay. And then you go find a wedding planner, which I highly suggest you do. So you find an amazing wedding planner in your area, everything's good, and you show her or you show him inspiration picture. The danger with that is, A, you don't know what that picture actually costed, right? Because
Yeah.
there's nowhere on Pinterest the price tag. It's not going to say this wedding costed so and so, like this amount. And that's the reality. So your wedding planner will tell you exactly that, saying, well, it's a picture, it's a great picture. We could replicate that. But at the same time, you have to stay within your realistic budget, right? Because weddings could cost, how much you want them to cost, right? And now, with the price increase and everything just went up, your weddings too went up, believe it or not. So that's one thing. So a picture, yes, it's great to take from that picture, let's say, bits and pieces that you want. Okay. So let's say you're like, I really love those charger plates. Fine. We could get those charger plates. We could get them at the best price. We could buy them in bulk. We could rent them. You could borrow them, let's say, from a friend of a friend of a friend. That's okay. But the overall picture itself could cost more than your budget. And that's the reality. And I tell my couples the same thing, that it's a great place, Pinterest or social media, but you always have to be careful because you don't know if the wedding was sponsored. You don't know whose wedding it was from. Like, for example, the Sophia Richie wedding, right? Stunning, but most likely it was all sponsored. I'm just speculating, but
They
you know what I
also
mean?
have a lot more money than the average human.
Exactly. So that's an example. So you look at that one, you're like, wow, I love the flowers. I love this. We could You could copy it, but it's going to cost you a lot more than what you think. Especially for flowers, they went up in price. So it's just as any florist will tell you the same thing. So it's a dangerous place, social media. And my favorite social media for weddings, TikTok. Oh, TikTok. How I have a love-hate relationship with TikTok for weddings. So that just might be me as a planner, but I find TikTok is, I guess, more dangerous than Pinterest because TikTok is live, right? It's like they're showing you the behind the scenes of a wedding, or, oh, or an influencer, I want to call them the influencer, right? They're like, oh, this is what I spent on my wedding. I'll give you the prices. So, and I'm sure you've seen those videos. It's like, the voiceover and like pictures from the wedding. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
this costed me 2,000. This costed me 1,000. But again, it's wrong information because that's in their area where they're planning. So if they're not planning in your city, the prices will vary greatly, right? So
Or
you always
year to year too, because, every year people increase their prices and, that's
exactly.
kind of the reality of it. So budget is not clear on social media. And we were talking before about styled shoots as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
And so for a styled shoot for our listeners out there who may not know, is when a team of vendors gets together, they create a mini sort of event that they photograph and then and potentially video
yeah,
that's really beautiful and showcases the things that they want their potential client, the style that they want their potential clients to see. So
exactly.
that table could be a $15,000 table because it's the only one at that style shoot.
Exactly. Yeah. And you
Whereas
have
your budget might be $15,000 for all of the tables and you might have 200 guests. So that's going to be,
exactly that. So it's and that's like you said for style shoots, they're great. It gives you inspiration, but that one table could be your whole because that focuses on that table. So you best believe the style shoots I do, and I'm sure you do too, we stuff that table with things, we make it look wow, and we want, as a planner, we want that to be the focus, is that table. And forget everything. We want that table. But for your wedding, that might be your overall budget for a certain part or in total, right? So you have to keep that in mind too, is that photo shoot gorgeous, great inspiration, but always remember that realistically speaking, that was the main focus of the shoot in reality, right? But TikTok, like I was saying, TikTok is, oh, TikTok, how can I love hate? So, like I said, you'll see influencers like, saying this, saying that, oh, my wedding costed this much. And my favorite of them all on those influencer TikTok wedding talk, oh, I DIY'd my whole wedding. How? Tell me, how did you like, I need to know more information. How did you DIY all your tables? All this, all that. Don't get me wrong, DIYs are great, I find, for smaller things for a wedding. And I'll give you an example which I think is really neat. For example, let's say not necessarily DIY, more like thrifted items. So thrifted, let's say vases of different sizes, like little things like that I could see happening. But to tell me as a wedding pro that you DIY'd your whole wedding, everything, I don't know how I feel about that. Like I want to
well,
believe
because
it.
yeah, but realistically, like you aren't doing all your like if you're doing all your florals, you have some sort of background or large refrigerator system, or like there are a lot of
Exactly.
pieces you have to have in place in order to DIY things.
Yeah.
And you have to rely on someone else to execute a lot of it because you're getting hair and makeup done potentially,
Yeah, you said it.
or, dressed and photos and all the things.
All
So,
the whole day you're busy being dolled up, like you said. You're not going to have time to necessarily place every item how you want it to look.
yeah.
Either a, you'll have a family member that's generous enough to help to put it, which is fine,
That's a
or
big ask.
I've seen it happen. I heard stories, not my stories, but I heard stories that family members, which is okay. If you have someone that you can trust on your wedding day to set up how you envision it for the past year, I say go for it. Or B, you work with a planner that from the beginning helps you and guides you in the right direction. Or C, if you're very lucky, the venue does the setup. And remember, not all venues do setup of the table. Some do, some don't. So it depends on a lot. So at the end of the day, the influencers that say, oh, I DIY'd it, yeah, you might have made the items yourself, but to say that you were responsible for setting up all the tables perfectly, I don't know how I feel about that. And like I said, thrifted things are coming back, I feel like, in style, like for the more vintage boho look, which is stunning. But those you buy, at a thrift shop, you can find beautiful very beautiful pieces that are very unique, which is gorgeous. But you didn't actually make the vases. You just purchased them and bought them, So it's, you have to be so careful with social media. Don't believe everything you read. And if you're not sure, I know some wedding planners in some areas, they offer just a consultation, or like a mini planning session. You know what I mean? They to guide you with a certain part. So if you're not sure, you could do that too. Or ask a family friend that maybe just got married. Say, hey, what do you think of this? Because they were just in that process, right? The same as you are now. So don't believe everything you see. Just don't. It'll avoid disappointment later on. Because the last thing you want big time is you have an idea, the perfect picture in your head of how you want everything to look, which is good. Then you get inspiration from online, TikTok, the influencers, wedding talk, Pinterest, even Instagram too, reels. You have to be careful. It depends. You really have to be cautious of those. But I prefer reels versus TikTok. I don't know. That just might be me. So, and then you go actually, let's say, to the florist to say, hey, you see this picture, can I have these flowers? And it's more than your whole budget. And then you'll be disappointed because reality, so then you'll have to wipe that away and be like, well, where do I go now? And then you have to, I say, downsize or replace certain items. But then at the end of the day, you're not going to be truly happy because you already had a vision in your head saying, I wanted this. I saw it on TikTok. I saw it on Instagram, or even better, Pinterest. And then you'll be sad, and you don't want to start off your whole wedding planning journey to just be sad and not, I guess, inspired to continue, right? Because it's just reality. And that's why I always tell my clients, I'm like, look, yes, it's a picture. We could take, like I said, pieces. Okay, you like the flowers? Let's focus on the flowers. Forget the tablecloth, forget this. You like the flowers in the picture? We'll just do the flowers. Fine. We could do that. There's many ways of working around. You can use, again, I'm not a big fan of using artificial flowers, but if you have to, we could work something out. You know what I mean? But don't expect to do the whole picture for under X amount. And even as a planner, if a couple comes to me saying, well, how much will this cost? I'm like, it depends on the vendor, depends on their cost, because everything went up year by year, even month by month. The peak season will cost you more than the end season, the prices, with supply and demand. So I can't even give you a price sometimes if and I don't want to speak for another vendor saying, oh, the flowers will cost you, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say to my client, like, oh, example, flowers, well, they're going to cost you, let's say, 5K, but that could be so wrong. And then I don't want to mislead you saying, well, now the quote comes to, let's say, 8 with delivery and, and everything,
Yeah.
right? So I can't even give you a number. Like, sometimes I guess I could ballpark an average price, but even my average price could be way off. So that's why I sort of stopped saying that because I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? We're not going there just to avoid disappointment because I don't want you to start off your wedding planning journey disappointed and sad and just not even inspired to continue and you're not excited. It's like you're supposed to be excited for your wedding planning. It's a fun time. You're planning your forever, right? And I don't want a picture to like put that in your mind, you know what I mean? Because that's not cool either, and it's not fun for anyone. So that's why at the end of the day, I'm like, look, you know what? What do you like of it? You like the charger plate? We could get you charger plates. There's many companies, rental companies you could buy online. Even second, we could work that out. But one piece though, or even two, we could work something out, but not the whole picture. Because forget it, we're not doing that. But no, 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 no. No, we can't.
So avoid disappointment by actually managing your expectations,
Yeah,
staying within your budget and knowing that you don't have any concept of what the photo's budget might have been.
exactly.
And then, being careful of your time and expectations surrounding DIY. choosing, and then the things that I'm hearing you recommend are choosing the pieces, looking at the picture carefully,
Yeah,
choosing the pieces that are actually the things that you're connected with. Because sometimes it's hard to tell that. It might be the background. Maybe that's the
yeah,
venue that you want to choose, or a venue that's similar. Maybe it
yeah.
has nothing to do with the florals.
Exactly. Forget everything else. It might just be I like, for example, the exposed brick. Well, in your city, where where you're planning your wedding, you will most likely find something similar to give you that same effect. You know what I mean? And then you go from there. But if again, that's why it's important for the picture to really look at it and think, okay, what's drawing me in? Is it the background, like you said? Is it the venue? Is it the cutlery? Maybe it's simple as that cutlery, or maybe is it the menu shape that you
The
like?
colors,
Any
it
the
could be
palette, it could be anything at this point. So that's why it's important to like look at that picture, study it, and then be like, hey, this is really what I like. Or you know what? If you see another picture similar, there's a connection. What is it? Is it the same flower arc that you want in the background? Maybe. Is it the same venue? Like again, I'm saying exposed bricks. I feel like that's cropping up everywhere nowadays. You always see exposed brick, and I love a good exposed brick wall. So is it that? Or is it like you said, simple as the cutlery in both pictures is the same color of gold or the same matte silver? Or and that's it. You know, it has, and again, that's why when I talk to my couples, I'm like, if I see a similarity in pictures, example, if all the pictures they send me, my couples, are peonies, in all the pictures there's a pattern, it's the peonies and there's not necessarily the background, right? It's something in common. But if I see all the pictures have big chandeliers, it's the big forget everything else. It's your big chandeliers you want. And also too, when it comes to expectation, just a little side note, when it comes to expectation for, in pictures like venues in your city where you're planning your wedding, you might not have a venue like that. So then you have to, think about that too, because not all cities and all places where you're living have the same like the picture, right? Example, in Montreal, there's no beach wedding. I'm sorry to break it to you. Maybe you have the look that you want, but you're not going to have your sandy beach. So that's one thing too. You have to be realistic, right? Of where you're planning. If you're having a wedding in another state or another province, okay, that's a whole other ballgame. But if where you're planning to get married is your home city, your hometown, you have to see realistically the picture that you pick has to be somewhat similar to something that is already there, because then you'll be really, really disappointed, and then you might not want to do it anymore, and that'll be very sad. So that's, at the end of the day, like I said, look at the pictures, but don't be open, be open minded, be realistic, saying, hey, I know I live, let's say, in Montreal, like I do. I know there's no beach in Montreal, okay, but I know they have more of this style venues in Montreal, because, online, the only real, I guess, inspiration you can look at is the venues, their website, their Instagram pages, because that's the venue, right? That's what they have. So if you look on the venue social media pages, you could see more or less the room how it looks, right? Or if they have different options, say, oh, look at the picture here and look at the picture I like. It has the same vibe. Let's go there, right? So, that's one way to actually get cross check what you're actually looking at. Or maybe even better, what that's actually great, you might look on their social media page, again, Instagram, let's say, and you might see a setup in the room already that of a previous wedding, and you're like, hey, I really like that. And that's doable in the room because it's been done before. Again, you don't know how much everything costed, but it gives you that, hey, it's somewhat actually doable. It's not just a picture I took from Google or from Pinterest that was pinned on a board. So it really comes down to that. But that, I guess, I could only say is like the actual, you know, like proof that you could see of what it could look like, the venues. And remember, the only sad thing is not every venue has a social media page.
That's
Some
true
do,
too.
some don't. So you have to, I guess, pick your battles, as they say. Like, what, at the end of the day, what do you really want? Okay, if you like, again, if you want the venue, that's a whole other level, right? But if you want the flowers, okay, there's many florists. in the where you're living. You could find a great florist. You could do that, but at the end of the day, I guess write a list of the picture of what you like. If that could help you. Like you see a picture saying, or even put arrows or sticky notes saying, I like these flowers. Okay, we'll get the flowers. Or you know what? Not even the flowers. Sometimes, like I said, it's the napkin that it's like, wow, it's such a pretty color. I never saw it before. And another thing too, when it comes to social media that I forgot to mention are the filters, because filters are a big thing. So it's like you take a picture, right, of let's say the person that took the picture takes the picture. Let's say that photographer takes a picture of the setup, the venue. They edit that picture most of the time, I'm assuming, right? And then whoever published that picture then could add a filter on it too. So it's a picture, an edit of the picture, a filter on that edit. So at the end, it might not even look like that. Maybe the filter they put was like a pink filter, so it might change the whole color on it, right? So you might not actually be seeing the real how it actually looked in the beginning, like the original photo. So again, filters too, you have to be careful because I could post a picture of my work, I could put a filter over it, and it will look like two different things. So keep that in mind too, that whoever is posting these pictures or inspiration, they could put 20 filters, they could edit it themselves, they could remove this, they could add this here, they could crop this, crop that, and there's a whole other venue basically. So you don't even know sometimes, unless if you've been there, unless if you're at that wedding, you'll know. But the picture, and you could do a lot with technology, believe it or not. I'm not a photographer, I'm not a pro, but you see online like people edit their face, edit this, crop this out of the background, remove this, add that. So even what you're seeing could be false. So you don't know. You can never be too sure with the filter, but that's what I'm saying with the napkin color. It might not even be that color because that color maybe doesn't exist anywhere. It's just a filter over it. Or let's say if it's like a vintage style filter, like that vintagey one, maybe it's that and like, wow, I love that napkin, but it might not exist at all. It might just be literally a filter. So it's always important to keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking for inspiration anywhere, even on a wedding pros site. Yes, most of it is their work, but I've heard stories, again, this is not true for all wedding pros, they even take other wedding pros work or online. I heard stories about that too, unfortunately. So at the end of the day, the only way to get the actual pictures to, if you work with a wedding pro, say, hey, can I see your portfolio? Because that's their work. That's their work and they have it. So if you're ever unsure, you could easily ask the wedding pro you're working with, saying, hey, for the
Absolutely.
photography, that's the only way you'll get the actual picture, the source, not the one online. And even as a planner too, I have a portfolio of my pictures that I took or photographers' work, that they allow me to use. And I have a portfolio, like an online, portfolio, but that's my work. I could tell you exactly how I copied that work. I could easily replicate it for you again because I've done it before, but that's the only way you could really get an answer with the price because I have the prices of it. I could tell you, well, this is the going price because I have the rental item for that price. So that's the only way you're gonna really get an answer is if you go to the source. But most of the time, you will never know who the source is because the web is a very, very big place for wedding inspiration. So again, it's good and it's bad, but always remember that because at the end of the day, you don't want to be because then it'll be sad. You don't want to be sad planning your wedding. It's the one time you're going to do this, and you want it to at least be how you imagined, right? And you don't want to end up being sad after the first month of just booking maybe the venue, right? You don't want to be in that the rut. You know, you don't want to be in that. You don't want to be in that cycle.
Exactly. I agree. I think I love that you have now set our listeners up to manage their expectations
Yeah,
for social media. That is all we have time for today. Where can our listeners find you online, Valerie?
yeah. So I have Instagram. I am on the gram. It's Vintage Luxe Events, and it's the golden V because Valerie Vintage. That's why I did that. I didn't. I didn't want any events by Valerie. I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's no. So that's it's the golden V. Facebook is on the link tree. So if you click the link, you'll see my Facebook there. You'll see my website there as well. I'm not on TikTok for many, many, many reasons, so you'll not find me there for multiple reasons. But I have a website, and I always, I'm always up to date. I'm always updating my work, so you'll see behind the scenes, maybe, of weddings I'm doing this season. I always try to do like a little behind the scenes, just before and after. I love doing so. You'll see my work and on my link tree, like say you'll see this podcast be there, so I'll link that when it's up. Everything's on there, so you'll find me there, and yeah, and that's pretty much it. But you'll see all my work, you'll see everything that I'm up to, behind the scenes, and yeah, pretty much that's it. But remember, it's a golden V. Remember that.
Wonderful. All right. Well, look out for that golden bee and find her online. While you're doing that, you can find the show notes over at theweddingdishpodcast.com. And of course, we'll link out to Valerie on there as
Thank
well at
you.
Vintage Luxe Events. And you can find us on social media at the Wedding Dish Podcast. And tune in next week for lots more juicy wedding tips and tricks from couples and wedding pros alike. Thank you, Valerie, so much for
Thank you for
joining me
having me.
today.
It
Have
was
a
so
wonderful
fun.
rest of your day. Bye,
You
everybody.
too. Thank you.